Hello, boys and girls. It's time once again for another Wednesday night Bible class. And I've got Miss Paula coming back to tell you a story about Jesus calming the waters on the sea. So I hope that you'll pay extra special attention to her and that you'll listen to the memory verse once again that she gives us from 2 Timothy. And so be looking for that at the end, and I will also provide for you some activities that you can do outside of the video as well. Parents, also be sure to ask questions and discuss this lesson with your kids. I love all of you, and I hope that you have a good day. God bless.
Fun. So one of the things that we love to do is we love to read books together. And I hope you can see this book. This is a book we're going to read today. We would like to say a huge thank you to the Good Book Company who has given us permission to read this book together online. We also want to thank Miss Allison and Miss Catalina, the writer and illustrator of this book. Grown-ups, this book is part of the series Tales That Tell the Truth. These are books you want to have in your homes to read to your kids. These are books that you can read repeatedly to your kids. We love these books. These are some wonderful books. And every Thursday we're going to read a book, something like this, a book that helps us get to know Jesus a little bit better, because that's the most important thing. And that's the reason we're here, is to get to know Jesus a little bit better. So this book is called The Storm That Stopped. Okay. One day, long ago, Jesus was teaching people by the sea. Soon, more people arrived, then others, then more and more, until there were people everywhere. The crowds were just too big. Some people were saying, "We can't hear back here. Be quiet. Give me some room. I can't see." No one could see Jesus, and no one could hear about Jesus. So Jesus asked his friends, the disciples, to push their boat out onto the water. He sat in the boat, and the huge crowd spread out along the beach. Now they could all see and hear Jesus as he told them all about God. When he finished teaching the people, Jesus said to his friends, "Let's go to the other side of the sea." Jesus had finished teaching the crowd, and now he had something he wanted to teach his friends, but they didn't know it yet. So they all jumped in the boat with him and set sail across the sea. Jesus was so tired. He'd been teaching the people all day, so he laid down in the back of the boat and he fell fast asleep. It was a quiet evening. The water gently lapped across the boat, and the sun slowly set in the sky. Jesus was sleeping. Shh. The disciples were quietly talking, and then all of a sudden, they were in the middle of the biggest, loudest, scariest, most ginormous storm you could ever imagine. The wind blew, the waves grew huge, the water poured into the boat, but Jesus was asleep. The wind blew harder, the waves grew huger, the water filled the boat, but Jesus was still asleep. "Jesus, wake up! Wake up, we're drowning! Don't you even care?" What a silly thing to say to Jesus. Of course he cared. He loved his friends so much that one day he was going to die for them. Jesus stood up in the boat. The wind was still blowing. The waves were bigger than ever. The water was pouring into the boat quicker than the disciples could tip it out again. The boat was sinking. Can you see right here? This is the wave-o-meter. This one says, mild breeze. This one says, it's orange. I wouldn't be outside if I were you. This one says, if it reaches here, alert, alert. And this one says, a few waves, but nothing too serious. This one says, big waves, get out of the sea. This one says, it's red, too late, help. This one says, hey, there's some water in the boat. But then it says, you should really do something about all this water. And up here, I really hope you know how to swim. And then over here it says, getting worried, but nothing serious. Okay, you are officially in panic mode. Calm down. And this one says, major panic attack. Oh, it was getting bad, wasn't it? Let's see what happens. But then Jesus did something amazing. Jesus always does something amazing. He didn't help his friends pour the water out of the boat. He didn't help them try to row back to land. Jesus simply spoke. But he didn't speak to his disciples. He spoke to the storm, to the wind, and to the waves. Quiet. Be still. And just like that, 3 little words and the storm stopped. Right away, at that very moment, the sea was quiet, still, and calm. Then Jesus looked at his best friends. Why are you so afraid? Do you still not trust me? But they were terrified, and they asked each other, who is this? Even the waves and the winds do what he says. This is what Jesus wanted to teach them. He wanted to teach them who he really was. The disciples already knew a whole lot about God from his special book. They knew that God made everything. He made the world. He made the sun and the moon and the stars. He made the sea and the wind. They knew that only God can tell the sea what to do. That only God can tell the wind when to blow or the waves when to crash. Only God can do these things. Look. But the disciples had just seen Jesus do the same things that God can do. So what is the answer to their question? Who is Jesus? Jesus is God. Now we find this story in the book of Mark in the Bible. This has tons of stories about what God and Jesus can do. This whole book is about what God and Jesus can do. And we know that Jesus is with us when we get scared, and we know that he can take care of us and he can make all our storms quiet down and be still. But we still get scared sometimes, don't we? Remember a couple of weeks ago when we talked about Elijah? Elijah had seen God's power. He was friends with God. He believed in God. He trusted God. He knew that God could do everything. But remember when Jezebel, the mean queen, came after him again? He got scared again. And he got sad again. And God had to remind him again that God is with him and God's going to take care of him. And sometimes we need to be reminded again and again and again. And that's okay. That's okay. God will remind us over and over and over. And he does it in this book. And I know my friends, they have this book, and I know your Bible might look a little bit differently, or maybe you have an app on your phone that's a Bible. That's okay. Anytime you get scared or you get worried, you can remember about when Jesus quieted the storm. You can remember about when God took care of Elijah, and you can remember about all the times in your life that God has taken care of you, because he does it over and over and over, doesn't he? And you might have some grown-ups in your family. You might ask them, when did God take care of you? And how did God take care of you? And that's good. We just need to keep talking about Jesus, because that's going to help us every time we face a storm. Okay, my I believers, you know that every time we get together, we come together and we make a card to bless somebody. So we may not be making cards right now, and that's okay, but we can send a text with our grown-ups help, or we could send a message with our grown-ups help. So talk to your grown-ups and see who you want to bless and who you want to send an encouraging note to. And Monday at 3 o'clock, I'm going to tell you the most important story in all of this book. You don't want to miss it. All these stories are important, but there's one that is the mostest importantest, and it's going to be great. So I love you. I hope you remember our memory verse that we're learning is in the book of 2 Timothy, chapter 1, verse 7. For God did not give us a spirit of fear, but one of power and love and good choices. So we can keep saying that a lot. 2 Timothy, chapter 1, verse 7. So I love you. Go bless somebody. Go be extra kind to somebody. I hope you have a great weekend.
2 Timothy 1:7. For God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-control.